بدأت مع أفي شلايم، وهو أحد أبرز المؤرخين اليهود المعادين للصهاينة في العالم في ال20 سنة اللي فاتوا. أفي شلايم له كتابات كثيرة، أستاذ علاقات دولية في أوكسفورد في بريطانيا. خلينا نتعرف بداية على أفي شلايم المؤرخ اليهودي وضيفنا في آخر كلام، وبعدين نرجع نشوف المقابلة معه.
ICJ resolution, it was controversial. Some people were disappointed about there is no immediate ceasefire. Some people were optimistic, described this as a historic decision. What do you think about yesterday's decision?
I think that yesterday's decision by the ICJ was a real milestone in the quest for international justice. Israel was in the dock, which is where it should be because of its never-ending crimes against the Palestinian people. And this is the first time that Israel appeared before the supreme legal organ of the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, facing a charge of genocide. And the fact that South Africa is making the charge is very symbolic, because South Africa lived under apartheid. It knows what apartheid means to the people, and it made an excellent presentation in front of the judges. And the presentation was heard not just by the 15 judges of the court, but it was seen by people all over the world. And it was a real game changer, because from now on, Israel will be called to account for its actions and for its genocide in Gaza. The word genocide has been a taboo. The ICJ broke the taboo, and the ICJ signaled to all the members who signed, all the countries who signed the Prevention of Genocide Convention, that there is a real danger of genocide, and they have the duty under the convention to stop the genocide. So I am extremely happy, and I think we should be celebrating the judgment of the ICJ.
Okay. Was it an obligation to South Africa to bring Israel to the ICJ, or was it an obligation for the Arabic countries?
South Africa is under no obligation to make the petition to the ICJ, and it's very much to South Africa's credit that it volunteered. It chose to make the presentation, and it mobilized a whole team of extremely able jurists and presented a first-rate case against Israel, which Israel was unable to answer persuasively, and hence the judgment went against Israel. And although the judgment did not call an immediate ceasefire, it did uphold the charge of genocide in the making, and all the specific actions that were demanded by the courts, like stopping the bombardment of civilians, allowing humanitarian aid, all these specific actions require a ceasefire in effect. One disappointing thing about this case is that the Arab states have been largely silent in all this. Why are they silent? Why are the Arab states not taking the initiative against Israel and against America, who is not just complicit in Israel's war aims, but it's the enabler of Israeli war crimes? The reason for Arab silence and Arab passivity in all this is that they have signed, some Arab countries have signed the Abraham Accord, so they have peace agreements with Israel. They sign these agreements under pressure from the United States, and therefore they don't feel able to come out openly and denounce Israel and the United States. So there is, in the Arab world, there is a disconnect. There is a disconnect between the regimes and the people. The regimes who signed the Abraham Accords, these are not genuine peace treaties between some societies. These are transactions between authoritarian Arab leaders and an apartheid state. So there is a real disconnect between the people and the rulers. And throughout the Arab world and throughout the rest of the world, there have been demonstrations against the genocide in Gaza. The Arab street is up in arms. They are outraged by the Israeli-American war crimes and by the complicity of some Arab regimes in these war crimes.
Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday described the ICJ resolution as shameful for many generations. Itmar Ben Gvir, the minister of that same government, described the resolution as anti-Semitic. How do you think about the Israeli government response to this?
Benjamin Netanyahu would say that, wouldn't he? He is a major part of the problem because his life's mission has been to defeat to defeat Palestinian statehood, to prevent the emergence of a Palestinian state. And he's the architect of this genocidal war, and he keeps saying that this is going to be a long war. He personally needs a long war because he's on trial for 3 very serious corruption and fraud charges, and he knows that once he ceases to be prime minister, he would have to stand trial, he'll be convicted, and in all probability he would end up in jail. So Netanyahu is fighting for political survival, and he's so selfish and I would say psychopathic that he doesn't care about the damage, the death and destruction that he is causing to tens of thousands of people in order to survive politically. So I would completely disregard what Netanyahu says about this judgment, but as against this one psychopath, there is the whole of the global South who are rejoicing in the judgment of the ICJ. And one last point. Netanyahu says the judgment is anti-Semitic. There is nothing anti-Semitic about it. Israel, Netanyahu, his ministers, Israeli spokesman deliberately conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. They deliberately do that in order to silence any legitimate criticism of Israeli actions. But these two are completely separate things. Anti-Semitism is hatred of the Jews because they are Jews, and there are Jews all over the world. Israel, anti-Zionism, is criticism of the practices of Israel, which has an official Zionist ideology. And anti-Semitism has been weaponized on a global scale by Israel and its friends in the West in order to confuse the two, in order to silence legitimate criticisms of the State of Israel, and in particular its policies towards the Palestinians. And it's very much to the credit of the judges that they resisted this pressure, they ignored the implicit threats and not so implicit threats that they would be accused of anti-Semitism. It's very much to their credit and to the credit of the president of the court, who is an American that they kept their independence and they showed some backbone in resisting the threats against them and reaching this very monumentally important historic judgment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you.
أفي شلايم كان ضيف آخر كلام إذن في هذه المقابلة في المؤتمر اللي كان في لندن يوم السبت. الراجل اتكلم على مجموعة من الرسائل المهمة جدا، لكن التفرقة اللي عملها في آخر إجابة ما بين معاداة السامية ومعاداة الصهيونية الحقيقة ده درس. الدقيقة دي لازم الكل يحتفظ بيها، لازم يعاد نشرها مرة تلو مرة باللغة العربية والإنجليزية وبكل اللغات. فكرة أنت معادي للسامية معناه إيه؟ فكرة انك معادي للصهيونية معناها ايه؟ السامية بتستخدم ازاي؟ الصهيونية هي ايديولوجي. اللي بيتكلم ده مش صحفي عربي ولا مصري ولا مسلم ولا فلسطيني، ده واحد من اشهر واهم المؤرخين اليهود في العالم. يعني واحد من اللي قادرين يشرحوا لك بناء دولة اسرائيل جاي ازاي. هل هو اصلا على اساس ديني ولا ايديولوجي ولا سياسي ولا ايه؟ ايه الفرق بين السامية معاداة السامية ومعاداة الصهيونية؟ يعني ايه صهيونية اصلا؟ الراجل ده له كتب ومؤلفات ومحاضرات في الاطار ده. فلما الكلام يكون طالع منه عن التفرقة ما بين معاداة السامية ومعاداة الصهيونية هو كلام مهم لازم يحتفظ بيه ويعاد نشره. زي ما قلت، وصفه لبنيامين نتنياهو، كلامه على ان المحكمة والقرار بتاعها ده قرار عظيم جدا وبداية تأصيل لمحاكمة إسرائيل بتهمة الإبادة الجماعية، أيضا كانت نقطة هامة جدا في حوار أفي شلايم.